Welcome to the UniJack project podcast. Today's a bit different. We've got a new guest, Alex Kingdom. So,
Hello.
there he is. And happy Easter. Happy Easter, my friend.
Happy Easter, yes. There is an egg right in front of me, which obviously I will not be eating during this podcast.
I also have my chocolate on the go as well.
Fantastic, yeah. This podcast is just full of diabetes. It is what this is.
Yes. So I should also mention that my friend Alex here is also a podcaster. He runs the Timeless podcast, so if you want to check that out, the link will be in the description.
There's 50 plus episodes or so, so you're good. There's a lot of content for you to listen to, so.
Content. I highly recommend the 50th episode. That made me laugh my head off. So
yeah.
Lots
thank
of
you so much,
great anecdotes in there.
And thank you for having me as well.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so today we're talking about what it's like to be a media student or a university student during COVID-19, this pandemic we have been condemned in. So. Yes. Well, I guess first of all, what has been your experience?
It's been a mixed bag, obviously, because there are still the really good parts of university that you get, but obviously we're missing out on a lot. I mean, in more ways than maybe some other courses. Because obviously media is very practical. A lot of our stuff is practical. I think out of our 5 modules, 3 of them this year have some practical elements to them. And so that's kind of sucked that we've had to really tone that back. So it's been a mixed bag. Obviously, you still get to meet people, you still get to do the work, you still get to have that environment and that feel, although it'd be very stripped back and it'd be on Zoom calls like this and things like that. So it's tricky. I mean, it's still a lot of fun because you still get to meet some people and do some of the uni life that people would be used to. But, there are those frustrating moments when we're meant to do a certain project and then it has to go from a group project to actually, no, you have to do it singly, or there is 2 people from the group not in the same location as tutoring, so it becomes a lot more strenuous. But yeah, I'd say a mixed bag.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully after the Easter holiday, it does kind of simmer down and things get to some degree of normal, and we can get a bit more of that university life. But I mean, I don't know. Would you because we're university students that started when this whole COVID-19 had already taken such a huge grasp on our lives. So would you say that it was a good choice to make, to come to university during this?
Yeah, I've always said yeah, because I knew that I'm somebody that likes to keep their brain active, and I come from a rather small town where not a lot goes on. So literally all I do is I go for a drive every day around the countryside, and that's basically all I would have done if I didn't go to university. So yeah, I'd say so. And I think in a way, those people that have stuck with the course and have gone with it and gone through the hardships, I think it's going to make them a lot more advanced when we do leave university and we go into hopefully the media world, and we can say that we've gone through that, we studied through that rough patch, and I think it's given us a lot more experience and a lot more strength as people to push through when things get tough. So I'd say it was a good choice.
Oh. And in terms of the facilities, and because I feel like I've only really had the chance to use the facilities once properly. I mean, apart from going into the classrooms, because in the beginning it was very mixed learning, blended learning. So basically, for those of you who don't know, that was when we had one day a week when we were able to go on campus and
2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours.
And yeah. I remember there being one workshop, and that was for photography, with interactive design and construction, I believe. So
I was really moody that day, to be honest, because there's one thing about me is that I don't like being on camera. It's just I don't really enjoy it. I'll do it in a fun capacity, obviously shout out you really do a Star Wars film. I'd be in a comedy short film, things like that. But to have photos taken of us without knowing beforehand, I found it quite overwhelming. So I didn't. I mean, I didn't enjoy that workshop anyway. And listeners who won't know, I'm disabled, so my handling of a camera is not great anyway. So I kind of just sat there the whole time, whilst people were messing about with these really nice cameras. But I just didn't really get the chance to. But no, I think obviously, look, the universities are doing the best they can within the laws that are governed. And I think that's kind of where the smoke and mirrors comes in from students. 'Cause I think a lot of students get annoyed with the universities, when really, if they're annoyed about certain rules, they shouldn't be having to go at the universities. It's because they're trying to do the best they can. They've got our best interests at heart. They want us in those classrooms. So it's very tricky. No, I'd say they've done the best they can with what juggling 3 different years, and obviously being in year one, we are the lowest priority, as it were. So yeah, it's tricky. Who knows? It's a weird thing.
I mean,
It's
would you say that, like, yes, they are trying their best, but would you say that because of like all of the restrictions that have been put in place by the government and how that has impacted university, would you say that it is a good spend of money? Because like it costs £9,000 in total or something.
yeah,
So like all of that money is meant to be towards an experience
yeah.
that we're not receiving. Like, is
See,
that fair at the moment?
this is the tricky balancing act, and obviously I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's sort of the university needs to make money to keep going for years to come. So if they drop their money, they won't be able to give the future students the same experience. And also the government have also lent so much money at this point that they can't drop the student because they need us to. So they can't really lower that money for the income for the universities because they can't lend the universities more money. So it's sort of a tricky balancing act. It's a weird one, because I'm sort of of the perspective. You can make the best of it. Some people who perhaps wanted a proper uni, which obviously we all wanted a full uni life, which hopefully we'll get in years 2, and even hopefully next semester we'll get a bit of that in the summer months. But yeah, it's a weird one. Selfishly, I don't think it is, but I understand the practicality, if you get what I mean, of why it's still the same amount and all this sort of stuff, and why it's a tricky thing. They can't just go, yeah, we'll refund you, Accommodation, now that is where I differ.
Yeah, accommodation's tricky. I mean, for us, I think we've been quite lucky. I mean, not necessarily unless you've been in the same situation, but from the get go, it's been like opening Pandora's box, because first we had the silverfish, and if you don't know what they are, there's these little tiny irritable insect kind of things, but they were getting into the lamps in the ceiling, they were getting all over the place in the washing machine room. It was awful. And then came the flood. The flood that ruined a lot of apartments and rooms on that day. It was yeah,
Yeah.
good.
I'm lucky I don't live in the same building as you, so I got none of this. But I heard about it because obviously we have mutuals that live in that building. It's a shit show, and I apologise if we're not allowed to swear on here. But yeah, that was absolutely ridiculous. And when you consider that they weren't gonna refund people for that, they just kind of went, "Oops, sorry." That you can't do that, and you can see. Obviously, we won't name the building, but you can see that because they've dropped their prices into this next year, they're really trying to make good, trying to keep people there. But no, yeah, that was ridiculous, and also I think the fact that most accommodation buildings weren't going to give students refunds that physically couldn't get back to their place of study. Why should they have to spend 2,000 or however much on a semester of accommodation when they can't spend a day of it there?
Yeah, I mean, I was put into a similar situation because when I was like level 4 or level 5 lockdown, whatever it was at the time, it kind of put everyone in a position where it's just like, right, you're either stuck in your accommodation at uni, which I guess is kind of good for some people, but then for other people, we were stuck at home. And I and both me and Alex we're stuck at our homes, and having to remote learn, which would be the case anyway, from our homes. So yeah, it's certainly a lot. Well, it's a lot more convenient in terms of like livelihoods for us, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's not the ideal like place because, for example, we can't access equipment as easily unless like gone out your way and spent the money on equipment like this to record sound, or you have a camera of your own. So it's not exactly ideal because we can't use the resources of university that the university provide to take
Yeah.
out equipment and like create the short films that they're asking us to create by ourselves. So instead,
Yeah.
which is fun. Instead, we're having to team up with people on the course and have them kind of do our dirty work in a sense. But we do kind of disguise it in the form of roles and like give them the roles instead, and we take a more administrative approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I don't mind. I suppose in my position, uh, I know if I wasn't in like a director role or something, I wouldn't really be very helpful on set anyway. Because it's a lot of lifting equipment, getting things in the right place, not getting in the way. Which being in a massive wheelchair is very difficult. So I kind of have to be in those roles, which I don't mind because it's the roles I enjoy. I personally wouldn't want to be a cameraman anyway. I so it's not so bad for me, I suppose. The one thing the big I think the big miss for me is the sort of like we're in such a great city and we can't explore that city's that life, the culture of it yet. That's the big thing for me. And that's what I'll be excited for when we can get to events again and that sort of thing. I mean that's going to be the exciting thing because I think that is part of the experience. I mean we can talk about the course all the day long, but I think as well I'd like to get back to those things like going out at night and
Yeah,
that sort of stuff. That would also be incredibly fun.
yeah, the full university night out banter that we should we are like deserving of. Yeah,
We are craving.
we are craving it. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. The city that we chose is like full of life, and the opportunities there are so kind of great. Because like it's only like a 10-minute walk or something to the nearest BBC building, and then like on the Cardiff Bay, which isn't that far of a walk. There's ITV. There's the other BBC
I love how you
studio.
didn't say the city. I love how you didn't say the city name, but then say Cardiff Bay, as if there is a city other than Cardiff
Okay,
close
okay.
to Cardiff Bay.
Fine, fine. But the point
I think the cat's out of the bag now.
the point is still the same. Like the opportunities are much more. Because initially I was gonna like have the university of my choice would have been in Gloucestershire. Because like the facilities there were fairly good, but the only problem is that the opportunities wouldn't have been as great because like well, apart from BBC Radio, there's no BBC institution or television institution or even a film institution located in this area. So yeah, I think Cardiff it was a good choice for me in terms of lifestyle change and well, comfort and like activities, going out, all that kind of fun stuff is what persuaded me, and also the fact that I probably will decide to live there after university kind of has finished, because I think it would be a good life support system for me. Like,
I was just about to ask that question. I was going to
yeah,
say, do you think that's where you're going to end up?
yeah, I think I will do. It'll probably be a couple of apartments to begin with, but who knows where that will lead afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I would love to say the same thing. And look, it's a tricky thing for me because it's I then have to find accessible accommodation, which obviously there is in a city like Cardiff. Like I'm not, but then it's about pricing things like that. I probably wouldn't want to make such a big move living by myself, which is probably why I find like a few friends from the course or whatever. We get together and we could do it that way. Who knows? But like it's a tricky thing to balance. Because also you need good workflow coming in. Like you can't just move to a city like Cardiff and then not work, because you ain't gonna live.
Yeah.
So it's very much you need to make sure that you got those things in place. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. I want to live there afterwards. It's the dream. Like I said, hopefully I can. Well, you know, I've already made some good friends already, so let's see how that goes in a couple of years' time, and who knows where we could be. But yeah, it's the future is bright, and I think that's the main. I'm always an optimist anyway. I think it's the best way to live. So you know, with this whole COVID stuff, I've always been cautious, but I've always been like optimistic that things will get better. And I hopefully by the end by graduation they will be a lot better. So, or at least we can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed that even next year will be a lot better than the year we've been having today. Well, not today, but at present.
We lived an entire year in a day. Christ.
Yeah, no. But yeah, the previous year or the year that you've had has been very hard. I mean, in the beginning it was like, oh yay, we're constantly at home. I don't have to like do schoolwork. I don't have to pass exams or whatever. And yeah, it was all right in the beginning, but then after months and months of the same thing, it gets to you, and then
It grinds on you a bit.
yeah, it does. It grinds on you. Oh, I just knocked my table. It does. It does impact you mentally, and it's something that as well when you were as young as I was starting out, like this was hitting me when I was 18, I believe. 18 going on to 19, soon coming on to 20. And yeah, it hits you because mentally you're not trained for that. You're not trained to go and well basically sit and expect to do the work with this lack of motivation, because like the area you're in it isn't really full of inspiration. Like yeah, you may have a couple of photos of some good times, but in the end of the day that's just gonna make you a bit more depressed. And so it's lucky that we have like this opportunity of being able to like go out for exercise and just kind of like get that kind of inspiration back. And then soon when things open up again in Wales, it should get better, and the inspiration will come flowing back to our heads. So yeah, I think it will get better. It was very hard, and it's something that we'll probably never forget growing up, especially in the future, because it's like a life skill, I guess, being able to adapt and evolve in some way for this new digital age that we've had to get used to because of the one-to-one contact that we're not allowed to have anymore. So we've had to replace that with staring at our screens and speaking to people virtually. So being able to set up things like this is vital for that. And yeah, I think it was a good move. And these companies that made them have been they've been coming out at the right time. They've
Yeah. Did you have stocks in Zoom before the pandemic?
well, I didn't have stocks in Zoom. No,
You should have got those shares, man. You should have got those shares.
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, no.
Do you have any shares in Pfizer?
All right, we get the picture. I wasn't business proposing in any kind of thing. I didn't have a percentage in there, a percentage in there. No, it wasn't like that. I was just a college kid doing his best. And
Otherwise, you're buying the drinks when pubs are open if you had shares in those companies, because they are skyrocketing. Yeah, it's a tricky thing, right? Because whilst I think I suppose if there was one positive from the start of the pandemic is it gave us a lot of time to do things that we wouldn't normally do, like online quizzes, that sort of thing. We normally chat to a lot more people at once, and that was sort of like fresh for like a month and a half or so, where we thought this pandemic might be like, oh, it'll be over by September or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it wasn't that at all, and we're here now, obviously in a much better position with vaccines and stuff like that, and the world seems to be going in a better place overall. I know some countries are still struggling, and anyone that is in those countries, if you are listening to us, my heart goes out to you, and I hope everyone here who's listening to this is safe. But yeah, it's a weird, tricky thing because whilst being young, I mean, I'm young, you're young. I'm a bit selfish. I want to go out and do stuff, but I also understand the responsibilities of where we are in the world, and it's a
Yeah.
tricky thing to balance because there are some days where I'm just like, oh Christ, like I just want to go to a pub right now and have a drink. Like
Yeah. I
screw
mean,
the pandemic, you know. You have
it's
those
it's
thoughts of
it's one thing. It's one thing being at home and like having a drink, but it's another thing having a drink with friends because like yeah, it's great to have one, but it's even better to have one in a pub with your mates and socializing
yeah,
because when you're at home and you're drinking, it just well, it makes you feel a bit icky and like not
makes you feel like
really.
an alcoholic.
Yeah, yeah, it makes you feel like you need it to escape, which isn't the case. I mean, it is the case
No,
for some people, unfortunately, but yeah, it's
yeah, it's a tricky process, isn't it? It's a weird thing where it's because virtual pubs and things like that, as pub quizzes and getting drink. I mean, that's funny. I run a podcast where we do a bi-weekly drink along to a Doctor Who episode. So there's like a buzzword, we get smashed. It's great. That goes up on Spotify and all the other platforms. But yeah, so I do enjoy it. I mean, I like a drink anyway, but more than probably most people my age. But yeah, it's tricky because I think I'm the sort of person now that will appreciate the small things a lot more. You know, like going to the pub won't just be seen as a everyday activity for the first 6 to 8 months that we're allowed to do it. You know, it'd be like a thing again. It'd be like a proper thing. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to the pub, not just oh yeah, I'm gonna go to the pub, have a few drinks, whatever. But yeah, to bring it back to university and sort of, you know, it's also, I don't know about you, it's also been tricky to meet new people under the rules that we've had. And obviously with media, it's about building crews. And I think, obviously me, you and our good friend Ben have sort of become this sort of like trio now where I think we're pretty comfortable working with each other and we'll probably continue to do so over the next few years at this point because we know each other's work ethics, we know where we're all strong, we sort of understand each other and it
yeah.
works quite well. And
We know
that
we know
we've been,
each other's strengths and weaknesses.
we've made a film which I think we've got some reshoots. Well, whenever this comes out, it might already be reshot by the time this comes out. But we got some reshoots coming up which are going to be interesting. To hopefully make it the best one possible. But yeah, so I think that's really cool. But the first month or so was hard, man. You
Yeah.
like yeah, obviously because I got there. I think we got there. Did you get there on the first day as well? I think was it
Well, I was
September
there in
11th or 9th?
September.
It was
But
the
the prob
9th.
the problem with mine, yeah, I think it was either the 9th or the 12th. I think I got there on the 12th. But the problem,
The Saturday.
yeah, it would have been the weekend because
Because
my parents
I
would
got
have
there.
taken me.
I got there on the Wednesday.
Yeah, but the problem was that at the time, and this is something that I'll do a separate podcast episode on this. But basically, mistakes were made very early on in the university decision process, or the application process, sorry. And basically, I accidentally / didn't accidentally chose the wrong year. So I could have started my first year next year as opposed to this year. So yeah, there was a lot of anxiety in the first month for me on that because I was like, I'm paying this accommodation, yet I'm kind of not certain about my fate for the university year because this is like the payment's not going to go there. Is the payment going to go there? Are they going to allow me in still? Like, what's going to happen? So I was just constantly phone calls, emails, just trying to get ahead. I mean, eventually I managed to get it changed to this current year, and thank goodness I did because I wouldn't have met like you and I wouldn't have met Ben. So yeah, it would have been.
It's like I said, it's a
disaster.
weird balancing thing, isn't it? Of just how, the stresses. I think was so much different because we were going into an unknown. And I think during September as well, the COVID cases were beginning to rise again. So there was a part of us that were like, are we even going to be able to go? It was that sort of worry and fear, I suppose.
Yeah, there was
yeah,
a lot,
man.
a lot of anxiety. We were
uncertainty.
thrown in the deep end, as it were.
Yeah, and I think credit to anyone that is still on the course, because obviously I think we may have had more dropouts than most years. I'm not saying that like a high majority, but there's probably been a few more that have dropped out than
Especially in the
would
first
normally.
year. I think we've had the
Yeah.
highest dropouts in the first year than any other university or any other time. Like because
Yeah.
like it's understandable because you're not well, you're not paying for the experience that you would be paying for. And B, it's very unmotivating having to just work
Yeah.
at either home or in a small cube, basically,
Yeah.
because the accommodation rooms aren't that big,
Yeah.
and so it's very annoying to have to just like wait for like all these different Zoom calls to start and just sitting
Yeah.
there, and not really doing much. So
Yeah.
it was very annoying and very hard, but like as I've said, like on many other occasions, if we're able to get through this, then at the end of the day we'll be able to do anything because
The victory is just as sweet.
yeah.
Because like, I'll be honest, I didn't start one of our deadlines until yesterday. Like that's how I'm motivated. I mean, I had I live in a studio apartment. I mean, I know you've been at home since December, but I went back for a bit because they told us to, and I was like, all right, yeah, we'll be back in lessons. We weren't, and I live in a studio apartment, so I didn't see anyone for 6 weeks. Like I didn't see anybody at all. I went to collect my mail. That was about it. So it was very tricky, and obviously when you're on Zoom calls and you do work, the last thing you want to do is straight away start doing work. And then you're alone and you don't really get the other good things in life like speaking to people. You don't want to just continue doing work, so it's been a tricky thing. And I came in for my vaccine, and it was sort of like doing all the home stuff again to help my mum out because it's just me and her at the minute. So it's tricky, but I've got started now and I'll have time to do it because I'm a fit, quick worker. But yeah, it's just the motivation. I think has been the real struggle. And do you know what? Most years I would be like, oh, why are we essentially getting the third semester off? But I'm actually happy that we hopefully just get these next few months just to live a bit of uni life with things opening up a little bit, and we can all just have a chill.
I would have thought it'd be a good way because for all those kind of unmotivated students, I would have thought it would have been a good time period for students to catch up and just like kind of get ahead of the game again. Because like there's a lot of stuff that people probably wasn't available to look at, and you've got to kind of time it well with these calls because they're on at certain times of day, and you gotta have a pretty good sleep schedule to be able to get up because like the average person our age like gets up about midday because they don't get enough sleep. So you gotta train your mind into getting into the habit of being a university student because it's not just like school. It's another life. It's another schedule.
Yeah, it's like a job,
Yeah,
because
it's a 9 to 5 job essentially.
you essentially have that, and you can sort of the good thing about university though is that unless it's a group project, you can sort of do it in your own way. So, for example, I'm a much more a bulk worker than I am doing little bits. I know a lot of people like to do like little bits here. I'm much more a bulk worker. So, like for a 2,000 word essay, I normally do like two 1,000 word sessions, then do little bit, because then I don't feel like I've got enough done. I always have that mindset of, oh, if I needed 250 words, like why am I stopping now when I know I can do more? It's I think also there's a lot more comfort in just getting it done faster. That doesn't mean you compromise the work because you have to look back, check, read it, make sure it makes sense, make sure you're happy with the quality of work. But I think it's just that feeling as well of just the relief of when you've submitted something, the fear and the relief. I mean, I suppose for us it's not super bad at this point because again, none of what we do matters in first year really. So even if we submit it,
I think it does. Suck.
I sort of appreciate it considering the year we were in. I'm sort of like, thank Christ all this happened while we were in year one. I feel bad for people in year 2 and 3. I'm happy that all the corona stuff happened in year 1, so that in 2 and 3 we're gonna have to get as regular as we can to going back to uni. But mate, it's it's difficult, especially with the caveat as well that none of it matters. It's sort of difficult to really get the elevation to do it to the highest degree. But yeah, it's interesting, and it's going to be something that I think, like you said, we'll never forget. It's going to be something that I think will be debated on how countries handled it and how we handled it as people. Because I remember back in like January, February time, we were all like, that thing in China, that's weird, isn't it? And then we were like, oh,
Yeah, we've been dropped
oh,
in the bin. We were
oh
dropped in the
no.
middle. Yeah, it was. I do remember it like before when I was at college. Just like people saying, it's reached America, it's reached the outskirts of Australia or something like that, and then it kind of hit us, and I was like, oh gosh, here we go. We're gonna have to do something serious, and I because it's my first pandemic. Like I've never not really been in a situation where I've had to
And
wear
hopefully you'll
masks.
last, might I add.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll
Yeah,
last.
hopefully I don't have another one. Hopefully the world's done with diseases and viruses and stuff. But yeah, so it was quite interesting because I remember my lecturer saying that it was the first, like this is the first ever recorded moment in history where education has had to stop. Like it didn't even stop for like in the World War. Like children were just sent to the countryside and they learnt there, but here it was different. Like my college education had to stop, so I even though I did get the qualification I wanted, it means that the final modules I didn't feel like I deserved them as much. Um, but hey, what am I gonna
Yeah,
do?
no, yeah, it was sort of a tricky thing as well because I didn't. Obviously, your college might be different, but my college essentially just dropped our last final project. They just said, "Don't do it."
Don't do it.
Um, yeah, they were because it was those things where they didn't know how to do blended learning yet. So, for example, I used to have a TA because I didn't have the resources we have at university. When I have speech to text, which is a lot easier, because essentially I'm really slow at typing, so it's difficult when you got to do like a bunch of research. Like for someone that would take maybe like 2 days to complete, it would take me 6. And for some reason, they wouldn't let me like have any correspondence with my TA. For some reason, so that got taken away. So I was just like, right, I'm gonna stop because at that point I already had my uni place anyway, so I wasn't too bothered. And that it sort of like really annoyed me at that point. I was sort of like, well, this is dumb, you know. So I was just like, no, they ain't gonna do this. Like, I'm not gonna put myself through that stress, and also the stress of the pandemic as well when we didn't know what was going on. Like, it was probably not until May June time where I really understood what was going on. You know, when we went back to somewhat, I don't say normal life, but more regular things like going to shops and being able to go to pubs and stuff, when you realise how different things are. And, you know, I mean, I don't mind wearing a mask. I mean, I've had my first vaccine, getting my second one soon, in a couple of months, hopefully. You know, and I understand people that don't want to have vaccine stuff, but yeah, I also want to ask you quickly, just on the term UniLife, obviously these vaccine passports have been in the news today when we're recording this on the 4th of April.
Alright.
You know, with certain things that, you know, you might need a passport for. I have a list, if you, do you mind if I quickly run it through
Yeah,
with
sure.
you? Just to see your opinions and whether you think it's fair, not fair, that sort of thing. Because I've had a lot of mixed response from people our age, you see. So it's going to be interesting. Let me just scroll up. Yeah. So this is what the COVID passports. So it's going to be not needed for pubs, restaurants, non-essential shop, buses, trains, and hotels, but it will be needed for major sporting events, nightclubs, festivals, theatres, concert venues, and cinemas. I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, I mean, well, if it's like highly populated areas and places which people know is it's gonna get very crowded, it's gonna get very noisy and very loud very quick, then I guess yes, I think it is a pretty good idea. Wait, so in terms of like when it's not needed, that include pubs as well, or was that
Pubs are not needed, but clubs
right?
are.
Yeah,
Festivals, cinemas, anything inside really where, because obviously places like cinemas and clubs will not open to full capacity again,
yeah,
without masks. Because obviously, especially for cinemas, I went to the cinema once in summer to watch Tenet. I had to wear a mask the whole time for 2 hours and 30 minutes, and it was
Oh
awful.
god, that's got to be awful. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it was. So like, that's why I didn't go again. Obviously we locked down again very quick after, but so yeah, I mean, like, I'm all for it if it opens things up and enables us to do things again. You know, it's life. It's the new life we live in for at least I'm going to say a few years now, where COVID's going to be quite prevalent. Obviously, the longer we go, the more science gets better and catches up and does a better job. But until then, it's what we got to do, unfortunately. And I think that's going to allow us to have a somewhat normal uni life. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Both of them double locked. Yeah. It's nuts. It's nuts.
It's weird that we're discussing this. You know, I think the good thing is we're discussing it now in April 2021 rather than maybe like September, because that was when it was all doom and gloom. We were like, oh no, nothing's gonna happen of this. It's all gonna
We
be
weren't
a bit
sure, because there wasn't a certainty of whether or not there'd be a vaccination at that time as well. It was just like
Yeah.
listening to the news being like, yeah, this is closing now, then this is closing now. Sorry, this is also closing now. Yeah, so it was very, how much more bad news can we get?
Exactly.
And then good news came along. The vaccine, and slowly but surely people are getting vaccinated. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Yeah, it's gonna be a thing. Like I said, I mean, obviously, maybe we could do a podcast on this once, you know, not COVID is over, but once, you know, everything
Like
with the vaccine
post COVID. Yeah, just be
Yes.
like, how does it feel to be in the wild again? How does it feel
Yeah.
to
How
be
does
free?
it feel to have your first night out, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
You know, that's gonna be fun. But yeah, man, it's a tricky thing. There's a lot of. I think it really depends on people's, but this is a really issue where it depends on people's perspectives on things, and you know, because I know some people really don't give a damn about the pandemic. They're like, I'm young, it doesn't affect me, sort of thing. Which you
Yeah.
know,
I think it's a bit
I find-
stupid, like
I find that a
with-
really annoying and
Yeah.
stupid way of
yeah,
thinking.
with that news, with the whole crowd in that park. Was it where was it? Was it Newcastle that it happened? Or something
I don't know,
like
but I know they closed it, didn't they? Because
Yeah, it was a
of-
massive, like, they were saying it's COVID friendly, and it totally wasn't, because people were like that far away from each other, and it was in the hundreds upon thousands of people just dancing around, partying, drinking, and the rubbish that was left over was absolutely atrocious. Like, it was on absurd levels.
Yeah,
And,
it's a strange beast, all this, isn't it? And I think it's brought out the best and worst in people.
Yeah. Like, the
Facts,
people
absolutely.
think, oh, it's for well, I mean, it probably is, like, curing their mental health, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, okay, you're curing your mental health, you're getting that one-to-one contact and socialization, but you're not being safe. You're not protecting anyone. You're just kind of making the situation worse on a level on of its own. So, yeah, it's
It's a tricky one.
it's a fine line between what's
It's-
okay and what's not okay.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, we're not here to say what that is. Really, we can only give our perspectives on what that is.
Yeah.
Look, all I'll say in closing of the whole what people should do, what they shouldn't do. I am fully excited. I am fully on board that it's been completely and utterly shit for the whole last year. And I'm so excited whenever we can go out and do things again properly. You know, not like, oh, we get to do it for 6 weeks and we have to lock down again. You know, do it properly without the fear of, if you don't do it right now, you're going to have to do it again in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
It's good, you know.
I mean, the one thing that people have to, like, get across this time round is because we don't want to get plummeted to another lockdown again, because this happened literally after the last lockdown before this lockdown. So we were just like, oh yeah, everyone go wild and it's all over again. It wasn't, and then we got plummeted into this one, and then so hopefully now we've given a bit more freedom that people understand, which I think a good portion of people won't. But I hope it doesn't get to the level that it did last time, and I hope people understand that you have to be careful. Yes, it would be great to go out again, and I'm sure that we will go out and have a good time, but we've still got to be careful and be wary of the rules that are in place, because if we don't do that, then it'll probably like because it's costing the businesses as well. It's costing the pubs and all of
Yeah,
these.
like, and I also feel for things like, theatres and nightclubs that haven't been able to get any kind of leverage on this since March.
Yeah.
They've got nothing, and they're one of the bigger UK's income, and obviously they're the biggest for transmission. That's why vaccines are important. That sort of thing. If you're vaccinated, the chance of you passing it on, especially to your older grandparents who are also vaccinated, that's going to be an interesting thing to do that. I think that's why the passports are important.
Yeah.
That sort of thing, so that we can do those things. It's gonna be interesting, and I think I know this sounds wrong, but you'll get what I mean. I think the passports might tempt some other people who were a bit wary about the vaccine to then come forward and have it. I thought the most important thing here is that we save lives, not people's pride, because they don't want to have a vaccine. Look, if you're scared of needles, that's entirely valid. I believe there is a process where they will put it in your leg if you're afraid of having it in your arm.
I think it's just to kind of stop you from seeing it. That's why. Like it would be to stop people from seeing what's going on. Right, because the reason why they're so scared is because they can see it and they can look down. But if it's just like someone's distracting them, or like someone and it goes putting their legs and just like, oh,
Yep.
you did it.
And
Okay.
Yeah, and as somebody that's had it, I had no side effects. It didn't hurt going in. I was all fine. So obviously some people have had flu side effects. My mum did, for example. But, I think one day of feeling a bit crap is worth the protection you'll get in the long run. But that's one person's perspective. But yeah, I mean, the vaccine uptake has been incredible anyway. I think we reached 31 million first doses today, which is sensational considering we started properly in about December. So overall, a good start, and obviously with more vaccines coming in and all that kind of stuff, I think we've got a Moderna thing coming in soon, which is another type of vaccine which is just going to help out. So
Yeah, they've been able to like reduce the age range of something so the children much younger to 12, I believe, can.
I think that's with the Pfizer jab. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been good because there was a lot of debate and questioning as to just like, why aren't children allowed to have the vaccine? Can it like only help people older than a certain age, and the rest of the people will they get negatively affected? Like, what's the deal? So there was a lot of kind of conspiracy around the whole situation, which. I mean, it makes for a good film ideas and stuff, but it is very scary if it was real.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and I can't wait for all like the virus contagion movies to come out over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, that'd be. I mean, there was one because wasn't there a coronavirus? There was
one called Contagion, wasn't there? Which is like very similar, and everyone I believe was watching it on Netflix at the start of the pandemic and going, "Holy shit, this is like what we're going through. One person did this, and now it all goes wrong."
Well, there was like an old film called Contagion, but at the start of the pandemic, I was watching a film literally called Pandemic, which was basically the same thing. That's where the whole like. Oh, the bat eats the fruit and then the pig or something gets infected. Like that kind of whole story came from there, and literally saw that happen in that film. But no, I mean there was a modern film that I think it was directed by the same guy that did Get Out, and so the
Jordan
trailer
Peele.
for that was put on YouTube. So yeah, it was very interesting. They made the situation much worse for film purposes. So it was like they always try to make the virus go deadlier than it is. So they turn it into like this zombie flick, kind of thing, where it makes
Which I suppose
people
is the way to fantasize it, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah. But I think in terms of wrapping up the whole uni life thing, I think it will get better for us. Well, I hope you really have to. It can't really get much worse in terms of being a uni student. So obviously the only way is up, and hopefully in the next years to come we can learn a lot of stuff, get a good degree, and hopefully be in a much better place even by September, which is obviously 5 months away, and a lot can change in 5 months for the better. So let's hope.
yeah, should change, and it will change. But yeah, I think on that note, then I'm gonna call it and say that this has been a very good episode. So yeah, thank you for listening thank you for listening or watching, this podcast. So it's a goodbye from me, and a goodbye from Alex, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye bye.